Humans, or in this case, Homo erectus, appeared in Africa over 1.5 million years ago in the eastern and southern African regions. This group of hominids is significant because they appear to be the first to deliberately and precisely shape tools through cutting, chipping, and sanding stone objects against other hard, rocky surfaces. They are best known for making hand axes, which could have been used for slicing, chopping, or digging. Many years later, in Zambia, the hominid group nicknamed Homo heidelbergensis had innovated their stone tool technology to create composite tools made from natural resources like stone, wood, and bone. The archaeological evidence for this is located around Kabwe, Zambia, and the tool fragments are dated between 500,000 and 300,000 years ago. The invention of stone tools enabled these early groups of humans to survive their harsh lives on the African continent by allowing them to conserve more energy whilst producing higher output. Stone tools made scavenging and gathering less strenuous and gave humans greater access to food sources. This allowed early groups of humans to survive long enough to keep evolving, and eventually these groups migrated to other parts of the globe, such as Europe and Asia. Thanks to the innovation of early groups of humans in Africa, humans were able to invent the tools necessary for our survival, and consequently migrate around the world. After the advent of stone tools and language, the next major development in African society was the agricultural revolution. In North Africa and Western Asia, from 8000 BCE and beyond, animals suitable to human needs were herded where favorable feeding grounds could be found. These animals were protected from predators and well fed by the Afro-Asiatic groups, thus becoming very large and no longer fearful of predators, which made them unable to survive in the wild. The domestication of animals was not quick. It took many generations of herding these animals for them to evolve to be dependent on human care. However, once that was accomplished, many African groups had at least one stable source of foods, specifically meat and dairy products from their goats and cattle. Crop cultivation developed similarly in the North African region. Wheat and barley were native to North Africa and cultivated in Egypt. Sorghum and millet were native to the savannas of tropical Africa. Cultivation began with the protection and weeding of plants and gardens, then with the saving of seeds from previous harvests and subsequent replanting. At some point, Afro-Asiatics realized the seeds collected from the strongest plants would be best to plant next for a heavier crop yield. This is an amazing innovation as it demonstrates that North African people recognize the relationship between plants and seeds as hereditary. Although genes and genetics were not discovered yet, the relationship between plant and seed was understood as perhaps something similar to parent and child. Early North Africans correctly assumed that the seed would grow up to be like the plant it came from. This demonstrates not only agricultural wisdom, but medical knowledge as well. The agricultural revolution also created the demand for new stone tools, like grinding stones to turn grains into flour, and stone pottery to hold said grain or flour. Stone bowls and pots began to be used in this period, and permanent settlements were built. Once again, African peoples produced innovations that would further increase the survival and population of their groups, which furthered not only African civilization, but that of the world. The next major accomplishment in African history I'd like to cover is the Pyramids of Giza, which are also located in Egypt, though they were built between 2550 and 2409 BCE, which was long after the agricultural revolution. Most nights in Egypt are cloudless, and having a clear gaze into the sky allowed the Egyptians to study the sun, moon, and stars, which they used to develop the world's first 365-day calendar, a monumental achievement on its own. But speaking more about the Egyptians' relationship with the stars were believed to be a glimpse into the realm of the gods. It is important to note the degree to which Egyptian astronomy was a spiritual discipline as opposed to strictly a scientific one. Because once you understand what the stars meant to Egyptian polytheists, you will then understand that the pyramids of Giza were not merely monuments to kingship, but also religious landmarks for the ancient Egyptians and regarded as holy. The construction of the first pyramid began during the reign of Khufu, who was the pharaoh from 2545 to 2525 BCE. An elite class of specialists oversaw the construction project. Surveyors scouted the land that would be suitable for building, engineers designed the architectural structure of the pyramids, and skilled stonemasons created the blocks that would be used for the buildings. The project took 20 years to complete, and most of the heavy lifting was completed by peasant labor, forcibly recruited from villages on a rotational basis in order to preserve the agricultural cycle. These men were organized into military-style hierarchy of teams, gangs, and crews, at least 4,000 men on the construction site at any given time, and these men worked 10-hour days. The next two pyramids of Gaza, commissioned by Khufu's two oldest sons, were constructed under similar conditions. The construction of the pyramids of Gaza is significant to the advancement of the human race because it demonstrates a point in which technology, science, and mathematics were honed to such a degree of complexity and accuracy that larger-than-life monuments to human achievement could be erected. These pyramids were the result of millions of years' worth of innovations, namely the invention of stone tools, which gave humans the ability to create rather than continuing to rely on the products of nature, and the agricultural revolution, which made it possible to feed a population large enough to complete these massive construction projects that the Egyptians produced. Egypt's prestige and success also inspired other people from other cultures to prioritize study and innovation. The next accomplishment in African history I would like to discuss is the smelting of iron. Iron smelting technology was most likely developed independently in multiple regions and societies across the globe. Therefore, it cannot be said that Africans were the first to invent this technology. However, it was invented in Africa, with or without outside influence depending on the region. There is evidence of early iron smelting technology in the region between Lake Chad and the Great Lakes of East Africa from 1000 to 600 BCE. This is likely one of the regions that developed iron smelting independently. This knowledge spread westward along old copper trading networks to the West African woodland regions south of the Sahara. Iron smelting was a vital discovery in this region because iron tools were more efficient for hunting and agriculture than the traditional copper tools, which led to an agricultural surplus and a subsequent population increase in the region. This naturally encouraged sub-Saharan communities to produce more iron tools. However, iron smelting came at a grave cost to the environment. The chemical process of smelting iron required high amounts of hardwood charcoal, which came from tinder, the harvesting of which led to the deforestation of iron smelting communities. This deforestation caused the habitat loss of indigenous wildlife and erosion of the earth. The invention and the dispersal of iron smelting technology across Africa is significant because the chemistry required to smelt iron displays the extent to which humans were scientifically and mathematically inclined, and how humans use intellectual progress to improve society via advancements in agriculture and hunting. As technological achievements such as these increased human survival at the cost of causing immense damage to the environment, which ultimately created a landscape that is inhospitable to a human population. The final development I would like to speak about is the spread of Islam throughout West Africa, beginning with the Berbers of the Western Sahara, who were among the first West Africans to convert to Islam. Through trade, the religion slowly spread to parts of Western Sudan in the 10th century. In the 11th century, a northern Berber scholar named Abdallah ibn Yazin built up a fortress on the Mauritanian coast, which was inhabited by his followers, the Almoravids, a group of Muslims who followed a strict interpretation of Islamic law and believed in jihad, or holy warfare. Abdallah's forces allied with the Lamtuna Berbers, and their combined armies conquered Sigilisma to the north and Adguast to the south in 1055. Assimilating the Zenata Berbers and some Ghanaians into their growing Islamic empire. In the last quarter of the 11th century, the Soninke rulers of Ghana converted to Islam. And in the 12th century, the successor state of the Almoravids, the Almohad, completed their predecessors' work of converting North Africa and Western Sudan to Islam. This is significant because of the changes the regions of Africa united by Islam underwent. Literacy spread throughout the North and West African regions through the teaching of the Quran, which must be read in Arabic. and mosques became centers of intellectual pursuit. From Islam, modern intellectuals get algebra, the number zero, the discipline of medicine as a secular science as opposed to a branch of religion, and more. The wealth and vast resources of Western and Northern Africa contributed to the cultivation of these Islamic centers of learning. The main point I want to make is that African society was not static nor passive. African people have always been innovative, adventurous, intellectual, and African society should not only be proud of themselves for their advancements, but globally, every culture should respect African communities for their role in protecting and nurturing the ever-evolving legacy of human beings.